Once upon a time, not too long ago, by cosmic standards anyway, a few bald apes got so good at thinking they started asking the worst question imaginable. Why? Why are we here? Why is there suffering? Why does coffee taste better when you're sad? And of course, the big one, what is the meaning of life? Enter Nietzsche, moustached, manic, migraine-ridden, and absolutely done with your shit. He didn't find the meaning of life. He didn't even try. Instead, he walked up to it with a hammer and smashed it into 1,000 pretty pieces. Because according to Nietzsche, there is no meaning, at least not in the usual sense. No divine blueprint, no objective purpose, no cosmic HR department ready to hand you a neatly laminated life plan. There's just you, spinning through space on a slightly damp rock, armed with perspective, will, and the occasional Spotify playlist. See, Nietzsche saw traditional meaning, religion, morality, even science, as desperate attempts to dodge the unbearable truth that meaning is not discovered, it is invented. He wrote, "There are no facts, only interpretations." And then he poured a large glass of existential whiskey, stared directly into the void, and said, "Cheers." What replaces the meaning-shaped hole in your soul, then? Nietzsche's answer is both elegant and a little terrifying. You do. Meaning isn't a thing out there, it's a thing you do. A verb, not a noun. We are, in his words, the valuing animal, the only species pretentious enough to assign purpose to a universe that never asked to be understood. There is no final answer waiting behind the curtain. There's just the will to hang up your own damn curtain and shout, "Ta-da!" This brings us to one of Nietzsche's most deliciously misunderstood ideas, the will to power. It's not about conquest or ego. Not entirely. The will to power is the deep, bubbling drive within all life to expand, to become, to grow beyond its current form. It is a sunflower turning toward the sun, a teenager slamming their door for the first time, a drunk raccoon attempting parkour behind your local Taco Bell. It is creation. Now, before you run off into the night shouting, "I am the Übermensch," and punching lampposts in the name of self-overcoming, Nietzsche has a warning. Most people will not become this. Most people will run from the burden of inventing their own meaning. They'll hide in churches, ideologies, TikTok dances. And that's fine. But if you're still listening at this point, if you're lying in bed wondering if the abyss is actually just you in drag, then you, dear meatbag, might just have the makings of a cosmic rebel. Someone who doesn't find meaning, but makes it, out of blood, out of boredom, out of bad poetry and good kisses and long walks where you cry a little too hard for a Tuesday afternoon. The meaning of life is dead. Long live the meaning. You've made it this far, gold star. You've murdered the old gods, torched the instruction manual, and now you're standing alone in the smouldering ruins of certainty. It's dark, it's cold, and, uh-oh, it smells like dread. Welcome to nihilism. It's not as trendy as astrology or as fun as ketamine, but nihilism is what happens when you realize that all the meaning you thought was real isn't. No heaven, no cosmic plan, no karmic spreadsheet balancing your suffering with some future reward. Just this. You, a breathing bag of carbon with Wi-Fi access and unresolved childhood issues, floating in the dark, wondering if it's okay to eat cereal for dinner again. Nietzsche, in his usual sunshine and lollipops way, called this the greatest crisis of humanity, the collapse of all values, the slow, choking asphyxiation of purpose, a cultural hangover after the party of belief has ended and God has ghosted the group chat. But here's the twist Nietzsche offers us. Nihilism isn't the end, it's the beginning, a necessary detox, a philosophical puberty, the part of the hero's journey where the mentor dies, and you have to build your lightsaber out of scrap and raw existential terror. See, not all nihilism is created equal. There's passive nihilism, which is what you get when you stare into the abyss and say, "Oh well." Nietzsche didn't fear nihilism. He feared we'd get stuck in it, that we'd wallow in despair instead of using the ruins as raw material. Because here's the thing, nihilism isn't dangerous because nothing matters. It's dangerous because anything could. And you little miracle of sentient meat, you get to choose. But be warned, there are still traps. Nietzsche's particular nemesis was what he called life-denying philosophies, belief systems that only value life if it has a purpose outside itself. He saw them in Christianity, in Platonism, in self-help books that scream, "Live your best life," while selling you collagen powder and shame. If your joy depends on some higher justification, some afterlife, reward, cosmic sticker chart, then Nietzsche says you're not affirming life, you're bargaining with it. And that's just nihilism in denial. So where does this leave us? Right here, in a world without inherent meaning, where you can cry for no reason at a bus stop, where you can laugh during a funeral because the priest pronounced resurrection like an erection joke, where you can write bad poetry, make weird art, fall in love with the wrong people, and scream into the void knowing the void won't scream back. And that's okay, because in Nietzsche's universe, despair is not a pit, it's a launch pad. And your rocket fuel is the absurd, sweaty, wonderful freedom to create your own why. Let's say, just for fun, that the universe is a loop, not a metaphorical one, a literal cosmic vinyl that spins forever. Everything you've ever done, every banana peel you've slipped on, every awkward text you've sent, every time you accidentally called your teacher mum, it's all going to happen again, and again, and again, forever. This is Nietzsche's thought experiment known as eternal recurrence, and it's not here to comfort you. Imagine a demon sidles up to you in the middle of the night, because that's when demons do their best work, and whispers, "This life, as you now live it, you will have to live once more, and countless times more, and there will be nothing new in it. Every pain, every joy, every sigh, every sneeze, all of it, again and again, without end." And then the demon smirks and asks, "Would you curse this moment or bless it?" That's the test. That's the whole thing. Because if the thought of living your life, every mistake, every heartbreak, every dental appointment, on eternal replay horrifies you, then maybe you're not living the life you want. But if you could look that demon in the eyes and say, "Yes," again, 1,000 times yes, then you have passed Nietzsche's ultimate challenge. You have affirmed life, not in spite of its pain, but with it. Not because it has meaning, but because you've decided to give it one. See, eternal recurrence isn't just a weird metaphysical prank. It's a philosophical mirror held up to your day-to-day existence. Would you choose your current habits if you knew you'd be stuck with them forever? Would you love who you love again? Would you waste another hour scrolling through videos of people making soup at 3 a.m? Answer carefully. The demon is watching. Now, Nietzsche didn't necessarily believe this was physically true. He wasn't saying the universe is literally stuck on loop like a cursed Netflix show. What he was doing, sneaky bastard, is using the idea as a spiritual crucible. A way to purify your life of what is unnecessary, unworthy, or unchosen. If you wouldn't want to live it eternally, why are you living it now? It's brutal, but it's liberating. Because it forces you to stop sleepwalking. It pulls you by the collar into the present and says, "Make it count, idiot. This moment might be all you ever get. Forever." That's not despair. That's fuel. The kind of fuel you use to quit jobs that drain you, to say, "I love you," when it scares you, to start painting again even though you're terrible at hands. The kind of fuel you use to become someone whose life, warts and all, is so deliberate, so deeply yours, that you'd live it on loop and never regret it. So next time you're brushing your teeth, staring into the abyss of your own reflection, just remember, would you live this moment again? Because maybe, just maybe, you already are. Here's a bold suggestion. Fall in love with your fate. Yes, including the weird parts, the breakups, the botched exams, the 3 a.m. existential spirals where you decide you're unlovable because your cereal tastes like nihilism. Nietzsche called it Amor Fati, literally, love of fate, but not the Hallmark version. This isn't the everything happens for a reason crap your yoga teacher tells you right before backing into your car in the parking lot. Number. Nietzsche's version is meatier, meaner, more romantic. It says, don't just accept the shitty parts of life. Romance them. Buy them flowers. Take them to dinner. Whisper into their ear, "Yes, trauma. I would suffer you again." Why? Because resistance is futile. The past will not take your calls, and every time you wish life had gone differently, you're just arguing with a boulder. A very old, very tired boulder who's seen some things and, frankly, doesn't have time for your whining. But Amor Fati doesn't mean giving up. It means transmutation. You don't endure your fate, you forge it. You hammer it into art, into courage, into that weird little twitch in your eye that says, "I've seen the abyss." We brunch now. Joy, for Nietzsche, isn't the absence of suffering. It's what happens on the other side of it. Joy is the phoenix, not the fire. You want a meaningful life? Good. Then you're going to suffer. Because a life without pain is like a poem without metaphors, or a cat that never knocks anything off the table. Technically possible, but deeply suspicious. Pain is the price of admission for being conscious in a universe that doesn't owe you a damn thing. Amor Fati is saying, fine, if I must suffer, I shall suffer fabulously. Now, some of you may be asking, but what if my fate is just a series of disappointments, like if the universe was scripted by an underpaid intern on their 4th Red Bull? Then love that too. Especially that. Because Amor Fati isn't about loving what's easy. It's about loving what is. It's about walking up to your worst moment and saying, with deadpan sincerity, because that's the secret. To live well is to live on purpose, even when life itself isn't cooperating. To take fate, flawed and feral, and say, yes. Yes to this. Again and again. Yes to the mess. That's not denial, that's defiance. And it's kind of sexy, honestly. You've burned the rulebook. You've danced with nihilism, married fate in a shotgun wedding, and decided you'll probably stay together for the dog. So what now? Well, now it's time to build your own religion. Just for you. No commandments, no robes, no guilt unless it's fun. Just a set of values you carved out with a rusty spoon and a stubborn sense of self. This is the domain of Nietzsche's most misunderstood creation, the Übermensch. Let's clear this up right now. The Übermensch is not a superhero. He doesn't wear spandex, he doesn't fly, he doesn't start a YouTube channel about hustle culture. The Übermensch is an ideal, a goal, a poetic metaphor Nietzsche threw like a glitter bomb into the moral machinery of Western civilization. And that metaphor says, stop being a good little sheep. Start being the wolf that writes poetry and drinks wine alone at midnight. See, most of us live in the shadow of borrowed values. We inherit rules from people who died centuries ago, kings, priests, algorithms, and then we wear them like hand-me-down shoes. And when they don't fit, we limp. We blame ourselves. Nietzsche says, screw that. If the values you were given don't work, make new ones. Moral redecoration. Emotional feng shui. Take a sledgehammer to your inherited beliefs and build a weirder, better castle on the ruins. Preferably one with a drawbridge and a very specific playlist. The Übermensch is the one who's done that. They don't ask what's right. They ask, what makes me more alive? They don't avoid pain. They eat it for breakfast, wash it down with creative chaos, and go back for seconds. They've overcome the need for approval. They've walked out of the cave of tradition. Of course this is hard. Of course it's messy. Of course you will fail. But the Übermensch doesn't avoid failure. They fail loudly, stylishly, heroically, because they know that self-overcoming isn't a destination, it's a habit. It's not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming more you every day until the day you die. And even then, hopefully, you'll be too weird to stay dead. Here's a spicy little take. Most of your morals are hand-me-downs from terrified peasants, not monks, not sages, not enlightened beings from a higher plane, just bitter people who were very, very good at losing, and then decided to make that a virtue. Nietzsche called it slave morality. It's what happens when the weak, the oppressed, the resentful look up at the powerful and say, we may be miserable, but at least we're nice. Unable to win on the battlefield, they change the rules of the game. Strength becomes arrogance. Pleasure becomes sin. Revenge becomes forgiveness. And before you know it, we've built an entire moral system around not rocking the boat. A gospel of submission. A religion of don't. Meanwhile, the old school, what Nietzsche called master morality, wasn't concerned with guilt or pity or meekness. It was built around power, vitality, flourishing. Good meant noble, strong, self-affirming. Not because someone told you it was right, but because you lived it. Think less Sunday school, more Viking poetry slathered in raw honey and shouted at the moon. Now, Nietzsche isn't saying we should all become sociopaths. He's not telling you to kick orphans or laugh at funerals. He's asking something subtler. Whose voice are you hearing when you say, I shouldn't? Is it your voice? Or is it the ghost of a trembling priest whispering across centuries of fear? Because if you're living by values designed to keep you docile, obedient, and spiritually anemic, then congratulations. You've been colonized by dead people who didn't even like themselves. Revaluation of all values, Nietzsche said. Burn it all down. Every inherited virtue, every second-hand sin, every moral law scribbled in the margins of a holy book written by men who probably... So next time you feel guilt creeping in, because you wanted too much, said too much, became too much, ask yourself, is this guilt yours? Or was it smuggled into your psyche by centuries of small, scared people who thought desire was dangerous and freedom was a sin? Nietzsche's not asking you to be immoral. He's asking you to be the author of your morality, even if it means throwing out the entire library first. Let's end with a show. The curtain rises. A man stands on stage. His wife is dead. His kingdom is in flames. He's monologuing in iambic pentameter while wearing tights and an existential crisis. You cry a little. maybe sip some wine. And when it's over, you stand and clap and say, "That was beautiful." But why? Why would anyone willingly watch suffering, pay money for it, write reviews about it on Rotten Tomatoes? Why do we love tragedy so much? Nietzsche thought he knew. In his first book, The Birth of Tragedy, Nietzsche argued that art is the only thing that makes existence bearable. Not because it explains life, but because it transfigures it, takes all the chaos, the horror, the pointless weeping in public bathrooms, and turns it into something radiant. Greek tragedy, he said, was the highest form of this. It wasn't just about sad stories. It was about the collision of two primal forces. The Apollonian, order, reason, structure, and the Dionysian, chaos, ecstasy, destruction. The part of you that wants to kiss strangers and scream into the ocean. When these two collide on stage, something happens. Something sacred. Something that says, yes, life is a mess. But look how beautifully we can dance inside it, because life on its own doesn't make sense. There's no punchline, no final act, no encore. Just a series of events that happen to you while your body slowly rots. But art takes all of that and says, let's do something exquisite with it. Let's paint the pain. Let's sing the heartbreak. Let's write a script about gods dying and mortals sobbing and still call it theatre instead of therapy. Let's show them.